Greetings and salutations. So this is a little bit of a lettering thing that I had planned on doing quite a while ago, and I dither and I procrastinate quite a lot in getting things like this done. So what I'm going to talk about here is doing white lettering. Now, for quite a long time, I struggled with this stuff, with mechanical technical pens, and I was never satisfied with the contrast. Some inks, when you lay on a field of ink, they either have a satin finish or they have a glossy finish, and this can cause some problems with the smooth application of the white ink through the technical pen. That and the chronic constant issue of clogging pens. So there's this alternative. I can't remember where I heard about it, but it suddenly dawned on me what this could do. Because you can always add ink. I worked at a ranch resort kitchen in Colorado, and the chef there would always bark at people cooking steaks. You can always add cooking, but you can't take cooking away. And that's similar with pen and ink. It's one of the reasons why I rarely use pencil unless it's for compositional things. If I needed a specific composition formalized on a piece of paper. With ink, you can always add ink, but you can't take ink away. Unless you have a crappy Papermate erasable ink pen, and they're crap. For the most part. So, this is one of the brands I picked up. There's this, which is good for general purpose. If you wanted to do lightning and spattered stars on a large field of black, this would be generally good. For the writing, tinted drawing gum works best. The other thing too is the pen. So there's this, and then there's this kind of pen. There's that. There's this kind of pen. And this kind of pen. So generally speaking, you want something with a relatively smooth point. You could do something with that, but it would be a bit of a challenge. And one of the things about this is doing this is challenging enough as it is without adding more difficulty. It's a thing I enjoy doing, is adding more difficulty to what I'm doing. So you shake the stuff up. I think, yeah, this is a fresh one. So for the most part, and bear in mind that I'm not an expert here. This is all based on my experimentation. There is a formal professional way of doing this that I'm certain is far more substantial than my crude experimentations. But for the most part, when you write blocks of writing, you want to think of centering the paragraph. Like if you're typing this on a computer, you would, instead of using right or left or right, you'd use center indexing. just to make sure that there's a balance to the lettering. My handwriting sucks, so bear with me. Freaky Frank flew first on a Friday for fun. So there might be spots where you get like a little ball of this drawing mask, but that's the benefit of adding ink rather than having to subtract it. While it does its little sitting, we will go on about ink. So this is one of the things that I've been asked about. So this is one kind of ink that I use. It's a good general purpose ink. And this is my main standby. It has a good balance between fluidity and opacity. And when you do a heavy amount of black background, it dries relatively matte, which is helpful. There's this. This has a tendency to dry very shiny. It's a really heavy, dense ink. It doesn't flow very well. And so if you get an ink that doesn't flow really well, that's really thick, you can always dilute it with a little bit of distilled water. No. So, after a while of letting the liquid mask cure, sometimes it's good to look really closely to see if there's any little spots that you might have missed anywhere. And then the other thing too is I went with regular pencil instead of the photo blue. Might show up a little better. Then go over what you did with ink. Generally speaking, this is good for smooth drawing surfaces. You could use watercolor paper, which is generally speaking what this stuff is made for. But for something more technical, Bristol is generally what this is used for comic books. And there as the ink is drying, you can kind of see where the liquid mask is under the ink. So, I don't know if you can see it. So there was a spot here where there was an excessive amount of the liquid mask and a spot here. And one of the things you want to kind of avoid is excessive blobs of the mask, because it'll take longer to set. And if you're impatient and you like tap it to see if it's dry, it will kind of break a blister, I suppose, the skin over the top of it, and might leave a little tiny little crater where ink could get into. One of those little nitpicky things. Probably not something to recommend here, but for the sake of brevity, after the excessive amounts of ink. So you can see a tiny little pit there, and there, and there. And that's kind of one of the reasons why you want to be kind of regulate how much of the mask that you draw into the paper, because this could be a problem here and a problem here. It looks like there might be a little bit of an issue here. But it's a good thing, because with this you can see roughly where mistakes are, where the ink shines where the mask is. And this is just an exercise. It's nothing of professional grade. Very rarely is there anything that I do that's professional. So you do want to use a clean rag, but here's the magic. And there you go. I'm not quite sure why I put the dot over the U. That seems kind of typical of me. Not bad. And practice makes perfect. And that's the thing. On the previous video I said, embrace your mistakes, embrace them, enjoy your mistakes, because they are road signs to you learning. Encourage making mistakes. Don't work to perfection. One of the last things you ever want to do is work towards perfection. Even the most professional artist out there, where the work looks perfect in every single way, that is an illusion, because what it's not showing is the countless many times that there was a mess up, an error, a mistake, and you can tell how good an artist is by how well they cover their mistakes. So anyway, as a recap, I didn't use this. This right here was just a rebottled version of this. Handy art, good stuff. But yeah, this, and where is it? This. And a pen of choice. That's one thing too, is find one that's going to be relatively smooth on the paper. I have no idea what the hell this one is. I found it somewhere, and this is the only version of this pen I have. I have no idea what it is. And before I forget, you can get these at Hobby Lobby. They're cheap, so there's a little a dial to how thick or thin you want your lines. So that's why I have the tape there, because this is kind of a preset. These are cheap and they roll around and slide around quite a bit. This, a T-square, mechanical pencil, back and forth, slides back and forth. You're good to go. Anyway, if you've tolerated my rambling, disorganized explanation of something that I'm experimenting with myself, I appreciate that. On that note, have a good day.